What's going on? Hope we enjoyed our 3-day weekend. I totally forgot that there was a 3-day weekend. Totally forgot. Didn't even realize it. And I was like, oh, can't have school when there's no school. So, what do we all do? We have fun? Let's see if we can get anyone here. There we go. 4-mile hike this morning. Wow, wow, wow. That's awesome. Where'd you go hiking? Was it just by yourself, with your family, friends? Turnball Canyon. I've never heard of that place. In Whittier. That's cool. I'll have to check it out. On a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult of a hike is it? It's not terrible. I'll have to do it. I'll have to take my wife. She's not, like, super into hikey stuff like that. So, like, this was, what was it called? I think it was Garcia Trail. I think that's what it's called. I'm trying to remember. But anyways, there was one in the Azusa Hills, and that's a pretty tough. It's just uphill the entire time. Couple breaks, but yeah, she didn't enjoy that one at all. There's this one in Yosemite where it's like you hike basically under a waterfall, and that one was uphill stairs basically the entire time. She didn't enjoy that one either. So that's cool. But when we go up to Lake Arrowhead, because her mom has a cabin up there, the Lake Arrowhead trails, they're relatively flat and stuff, but she finds those really scenic and enjoyable. So that's cool. I'm glad that you're able to get out and you're able to move around. Being cooped up is miserable, man. It's miserable. All right. So in C and D, so part C, we are solving inequalities, and we have, looks like quadratic. Looks like here we have a cubic, but we could factor what's in common. We have absolute value. So do we have any questions on any of those? We're running across any issues. So just remember, when we solve an inequality, we pretend it's an equal sign, because we're trying to find those boundary points, those values that it does equal 0, where it's crossing the x-axis. And then we're going to find where it's either above or below the x-axis. If it's above, we're looking for positive numbers. If it's below, we're looking for negative numbers, or true or false. You can plug in there and see, does the inequality true or false. Are there any of these you would like to see me go over? Otherwise, I'll just pick one. Looks like I'm picking one. All right. So let's try number 4. All right, and then I'll do number 5. So we have 5x cubed plus 4x squared is greater than 0. So there's an x squared in common, so I'm going to factor out the x squared. Remember, we're pretending it's an equal sign. So that set each of these equal to 0, so I get x squared equals 0, so x equals 0. And then 5x plus 4 equals 0, minus 4, divide by 5. So these are my boundary values. Then on my number line, I have -4/5. I have 0. There's no equal to, so it's going to be open circle. And now I need to see where is it either going to be above or below those values. And so what we can do is we can test in each of those regions. Now I could test, plug it in, see if it's true or false. Or because it does say greater than 0, values that are greater than 0 are positive values. And so I want to see where is my region going to be positive. So if I plugged in, let's say -2, -2 squared is positive, -10 plus 4 is negative. So positive times a negative is a negative. If I plugged in -1/2, -1/2 squared is positive. -1/2 is -2.5. -2.5 times 4 or plus 4 is positive. So positive and positive is a positive. And then if I plugged in 1, 1 squared is positive. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 is positive. Positive times positive is a positive. So if we're looking for the positive values, the values that are greater than 0, the positive regions are my solutions. And so my answer is going to be -4/5 to 0, union from 0 to infinity. Comments, questions, number 4? Okay, let's go over number 5. 6x squared is greater than or equal to 4x plus 42. Bring those over to the other side. So I get 6x squared minus 4x minus 42 is greater than or equal to 0. So I'm looking for positive values. Because values greater than 0 are positive. Now I need to factor this. Or maybe it doesn't factor and I use the quadratic formula. So for here though, it looks like a 2 is in common. So how can the factors of 63 add to 2? So 63, I have 7 and 9. So a -9 and a +7. So this is just the Xbox method. Or factoring it by grouping. So for here, there's a 3x in common. Here, there's a 7 in common. And so that's going to turn into 3x plus 7 times x minus 3. And then that 2 is still in front. So that means that my boundary values are going to be -7/3 and +3. Questions on that so far? So then, on my number line, -7/3, 3, solid circle, solid circle. The reason why it's solid is because it's allowed to equal to. And then once again, I need to test true or false and find positive values. So if I plugged in, let's say -5. So 3 times -5 is -15. -15 plus 7 is -8, so it's a negative. -5 minus 3 is a negative. So positive times a negative is a positive. If I wanted to test 0, positive, positive, negative. If I wanted to test 4, positive, 4 times 3 is 12, so that's positive, and then 4 minus 3 is 1, so that's positive. Positive times a positive times a positive is a positive. So these values right here represent my solution because its value is greater than 0. So my answer is going to be negative infinity to 7/3, bracket, because I'm able to include it, and then union from 3 to infinity. You're welcome. Do you have any questions along the way, or did that make a lot more sense? It's probably the factoring part. I'd say that's probably the more challenging part on this one. Great. All right, so moving on. Any other questions on part C? Last call. Just remember for the absolute value ones, break them into two equations, positive, negative, solve for each one. All right. Moving on to section D. So this one's asking us to factor completely. So like a number 1, there's only an x in common, so I factor out the x. And so that's the answer. So just remember, the first thing we should always do when we do this, we should look for what's in common first. Then if we see something that's quadratic, we factor it using quadratic. If we see things that are cubic like this, like that are perfect cubes and they're two terms, those are the sum and difference of cubes. So remember, it's like the first times first is first, last times last is last. And you do that mnemonic, that helps. If you see 4 terms, you can do like a factor by grouping. So for example, let's look at number 10. So 4b squared minus 8bc minus 3b plus 6. So we want to examine what's in common with each of these. So between 4 and 8 is a 4. Between b squared and bc is a b. So then whatever's left, b minus 2c. And then here, minus 6 plus 6c. There's a 3 negative. You always have to factor out the negative if your first term is negative. And then between 3 and 6 is going to be 3. So then you get b minus 2c. Well, you know you're allowed to factor by grouping if those are the same. So then you write whatever's in front. And then what's inside the parentheses. Because now that it's the b minus 2c that's in common, and you factor that out between both of those terms. Comments or questions on that one? So any other questions on section D? Were there any of those that you would like me to go over? Okay. Well, if you guys, as you're working through either part, if you're working through part C or if you're looking through part D, just remember you can always ask questions in Discord. it'll come up as a notification for me if you mention me. So if you did like @Mr. Duval, then it'll show up on my phone. Otherwise, I'll always check Discord like once or twice a day, so I'll see it when I see it. So just message me if it'll show up on my phone that way. Other than that, I'm glad that we're healthy. I'm glad that we're getting out. I'm so glad that this is almost over, right? 2 weeks? Oh my goodness. 2 weeks. It's a week from Thursday and we're done. Man, it's such a bummer. I was hoping we'd be able to have this big end of the year celebration and have fun and eat delicious foods. Nope. We're stuck in our homes. So, alrighty, well, thank you for participating. And like I said, if you have questions, please let me know. Other than that, stay safe and have a good one.